So I wanted to ask you, with your story, is that you had plans to become a missionary nurse, right? And then you got this opportunity to go to Hollywood and become an actress. So that's obviously a really big transition. And so, as if that's not enough, ultimately you also give up the religion and you become a skeptic. How did your family, your parents, what's your relationship with them like? What was it like before? What is it like now? And your siblings as well? How did they react to it? How did they process all of this?
Oh man. So as you know from reading the book, and what I'm always happy to share whenever I can, is my parents are both incredibly open to learning and changing people. I think that it would be very easy for someone to read my book and want to villainize them, the way I've villainized parents of other memoirs that I've read of children who had unconventional or difficult upbringings. I feel very, very lucky that even when I did leave my faith, that my parents still loved me and chose to keep me in their life. It was never I never had to fear abandonment. I feared judgment for sure. I feared conversations I didn't want to have, but I didn't have to worry about my family not talking to me, never mind possibly even harming me or killing me over leaving my faith. So I first and foremost, I commend my parents for the growth that they've done individually and together, not just for me, but for all. Like I said, I'm the oldest of 5, and my 4 siblings, they all have their own journeys too, and none of us believe in God. We're all atheists or agnostics, certainly not the way my parents raised us to be. But my parents, they don't even really consider themselves Christians anymore. But this did not happen overnight, as it rarely does for most people, and especially I think older people who have grown children. As growing up, my parents were very, very strict, both within their belief system and outside of it. Like even within our Christian circles, my parents were stricter than most in terms of what my siblings and I could watch, what we could listen to. But they weren't as strict as some other kids that I went to church with. The main church that I grew up in when I was really little had families where the girls couldn't wear pants. They had to wear long skirts or dresses. So my parents let us wear pants. I wore leggings and jeans as a kid. But I couldn't see Fern Gully, for instance, or Jumanji, or anything that might have demonic or magical undertones.
Jumanji?
Jumanji, I can't remember the reason for that. Or I couldn't see Home Alone because it might inspire rebellion, a kid like on the loose. So my parents were very strict in their own way, but very liberal and radical in other ways. Like people are always surprised. I moved to Los Angeles when I was 16. I turned 17 within weeks of moving here. And at 17 years old, my parents let me stay. And people are always like, your parents were so strict. How did they let you do that? How did they leave their 17-year-old daughter alone in a big city in Hollywood with such a staunch Christian right background? And the simplest way that I found to answer that is through the lens of God. I think they, as well as I at the time, very deeply believed that the opportunity to be an actress in Hollywood was a door God was opening. It wasn't something that I sought out on my own. If I had, maybe their response would have been different. If I just decided I want to be an actress and model, and I'm done with purity culture, I'm done with all of this, I want to move to LA and make it on my own in a big city, in a very hedonistic industry that over-sexualizes people, one could argue. So it's like the very opposite of everything that I grew up in many ways. But the opportunity came to me. You mentioned that I was training to be a missionary nurse. So I was homeschooled my whole life, which meant that I was in college by the time I was 15, and got my GED at 16. And I felt like nursing and being a missionary were what God called me to. And simultaneously, I had been approached at different points throughout my teenagehood to be a model. And I was very split about it, because what person doesn't like being told you're attractive but there was also so much guilt and shame around being told that you're attractive enough to like make a living at it. It's a weird thing to digest, especially when there's so much shame around just being female and knowing that carrying the burden of being something that people will be attracted to and that it's wrong. Never mind going into an industry where it's all about that, because modeling was how I got into acting. Long story short, at 15, one of the talent scout, 15 or 16, one of the talent scouts who approached me at a shopping mall, so cliche, but true. At that point in my life, I was trying to think, how am I going to pay to fund my way through nursing school? And me and my parents thought maybe modeling is a way that God's going to provide the money for me to continue on with nursing school and eventually mission school. I was going to join YWAM, which is Youth with a Mission. It's a very big Christian missionary organization. And they have, basically they have like I guess you could call it like a health department. I don't know. I thought maybe I might join Mercy Ships ultimately, which is like Doctors Without Borders, but Christian. And so that was kind of my goal. And so I was like, all right, maybe I'll do modeling for a little bit. And then through my modeling agency, this was in Colorado, I got scouted by a talent manager from LA, and the doors to nursing closed. At the time, I looked at everything through a very spiritual lens. And so everything had significance, and life didn't just happen. It was obviously God opening or closing a door. So when I couldn't pursue nursing anymore because of my age, you have to be 18 in Colorado to graduate from nursing school. Simultaneously, the door to acting opened up. And so I walked through the door, and I started working as an actress pretty much right away within my first year. And so I took it as a sign from God that, at least for the time being, he wanted me to stay here. And again, I told myself, maybe this is how he's going to provide the money for me to go back to nursing school when I am old enough, or give me more of a, today we'd use the term platform. I don't think the term platform certainly wasn't my lexicon back then, but being an actor and model could give me a platform essentially to open up the hospital I dreamed of opening and marry a good Christian doctor was this whole fantasy I had in my head. None of that happened. I'm still here almost 20 years later.
Yes, go ahead, Armin.
I heard this from a couple of other former religious women. I wonder if it's true with you as well. I've been told like there's a guilt associated with enjoying being told that you're pretty. Like, mm-hmm. Was that something like there, like somebody telling you, people constantly telling you that you look good, you look pretty, and then liking that feeling that you get from other people, acknowledging that, and then followed up right after by guilt that of the fact that you're enjoying that. Is that something you experienced?
Yes, I deeply relate to that, and I write about that too. It was such a mind fuck, honestly, because of course the ego is flattered by being told flattering things, and simultaneously there was just so much shame around it. In my book, I write about how I got my first modeling portfolio, a book of pictures that I would take with me to castings, and I didn't even recognize myself in the photo. I thought it was another girl's book that got mixed up for mine, because I'd never seen myself that way. This was before cell phones had cameras. I never saw pictures of myself really like that. My family pictures, sure, but didn't. And I was so overcome with shame, I couldn't even look at my portfolio when it was handed to me. I had to wait until I was home in the privacy of my bedroom, and I cried because I could tell, like, she's a beautiful girl, this girl in the pictures. Like she could. And even now it feels so weird to say that. It sounds so self-aggrandizing, but that's how it felt. And I immediately turned to my Bible, which thus far I'd mainly focused on the verses of how women should not dress. Do not adorn your hair with gold and pearls, and don't encourage lust is ultimately it. So don't beautify yourself. Don't make yourself attractive and lustworthy. And I consoled myself the way I've heard other Christian or ex-Christian models, actors, whatever, have consoled themselves by referring to the story of Queen Esther in the Bible, who was this beautiful virgin that the king liked her best out of all the virgins lined up to be the next queen. And he was going to like kill a bunch of Jews, and she got herself really pretty and glamorous and gave her husband some wine, and eventually she basically seduced him and told him, if you kill all the Jews, you're going to have to kill me too. Change that. And so the takeaway was that God used Esther's beauty to save his people and to further do God's will. And so that was that's how I justified the looks that I've been born with, the time and place that I've been born into, where it just happens to be in vogue, and bookable as a financial commodity. People want to pay for the way you look, and I was just like, okay, I guess if God didn't want me to do this, he wouldn't have made me this way, and he wouldn't be giving me these opportunities. But there was still constantly, and to be honest, probably still to this day, on levels that I both consciously and subconsciously still fight. There's still a lot of wrestling that I've had to deal with over the years. Even again in secular society, whether it's based in religion or stands on its own as a cultural thing, people like you to. There's so many mixed messages, especially now with the body positivity movement. There's all these messages to like love the skin you're in, on an advertisement for something to alter the way you look. It's very confusing, and there's a lot of guilt and shame about our desire to be beautiful and the pressure to not be vain. Don't be conceited about your beauty, but aspire to beauty. I don't know, it's confusing.
It's actually, what's interesting, like while you're talking about this, Alice, like I noticed that you're still a little hesitant about it.
I am.
I don't want to be too self-aggrandizing. I don't want to see that, admitting that everybody has their strengths, and this is your profession. This is where you are. I mean, everybody knows, right, what you look like. So, but it seems like you still feel a little self-conscious about taking ownership of it. And I kind of know this because my ex is a boudoir photographer, like professionally. That's what she does. And a lot of the clients that she has are people from really conservative religious backgrounds. And they come in when they see their books, right? That when she finalizes their photos and they see it, she's made like loads of videos, testimonial videos of it, and they start bawling. They start crying because they're like, "Is that me?" And she's like, "Yeah, that looks totally like you." Like, well, I can't, but no, this girl's beautiful. What I'm seeing in the picture, it's not. So it's. I've actually heard a lot of stories about that just from being exposed to that. I don't think. It is a very conflicting message, So and the biblical story you told. It's about the sexual power or the physical power of women, and that for some reason is just, it seems completely shameful. It's like so ingrained. Whereas if somebody wanted to compliment me for the physical power that I have, which I don't really have a whole lot of, in terms of lifting weights or, being able to do, Armin has a lot of it. You've got abs, right? Armin, you can do it. Yeah. But yeah. Then that is a sense of virtue. I mean, we would totally own it. Like the men completely own it. Like there's no hesitation. Take off your shirt and, put yourself on Instagram. It's like easy. It's the first thing I would do if I had a body. I wouldn't dissociate myself from that image. It's really, really fascinating. The whole story is really fascinating.
Hey guys, if you want to join these streams live, get your comments and questions read by Ali and Armin and the guests, and most importantly, to get full access to the full video versions of all these episodes, become a patron. Link in the description below.